Dear friends, tonight we embark together on a journey into the deep stories of the Scriptures. Imagine the cool evening air upon your skin, the scent of fresh water, and the soft, rhythmic creak of a wooden boat. We are there, on the shores of Lake Galilee. As twilight paints the sky in hues of purple and gold, the day's work is done, and a gentle peace begins to settle over the land and over us. In the gentle moments, when the world seems to hush its clamor, we often find the clearest whispers of God's presence, a steadfast love that anchors us through all of life's currents. If this Bible story brings comfort and peace to your soul, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps us share this message of hope, faith, and peace with more people. We invite you to share in the comments below any prayer requests you hold in your heart, perhaps a favorite verse that speaks of God's calm in the storm, or simply let us know where you are joining us from on this peaceful journey tonight. Now, gently lay down all the worries of today. In a quiet space, let's take a moment to pray, breathe deeply, and open our hearts to the wisdom, comfort, and wonders that unfold in God's Word. The air around you grows cooler now, carrying the fresh, slightly earthy scent of the great lake, the Sea of Galilee, or Kinneret, as it's lovingly called. Shaped like a harp, the sun, a fiery orb, has just dipped below the western hills, leaving behind a breathtaking canvas of deepening orange, soft rose, and a gentle lavender that bleeds into the indigo of the approaching night. You feel the last warmth of the day radiating from the stones beneath your feet. As you stand near the water's edge, the gentle lapping of waves against the shore is a soft, rhythmic sigh, a lullaby sung by the ancient waters. It's a sound that has cradled generations, a sound of home for many who live by this life-giving freshwater sea. Jesus is here, with his disciples. You see him, his form imbued with a quiet serenity, even as the lines of weariness from a long day of teaching and healing are visible on his face. He has poured himself out for the crowds, his voice sharing parables of the kingdom, his hands bringing comfort and wholeness. There's a profound wisdom in his eyes, a depth of compassion that seems to embrace all of creation. Now, he seeks a measure of rest, a quiet passage away from the pressing needs. If only for a short while, you might sense his desire for communion, not just with his Father, but also for these men he has chosen, his closest companions. Even the Son of Man, in his humanity, understood the deep need for retreat and renewal, a gentle reminder for us to also seek those quiet spaces where our souls can breathe. He speaks, his voice calm and gentle, yet carrying the weight of loving authority. Let us go over to the other side. It's an invitation, a gentle directive. The other side, perhaps the region of the Gadarenes, a land less familiar, perhaps quieter, offering a respite from the bustling towns of Capernaum, Bethsaida, and Chorazin. There's always an other side in our journey of faith, a call to move beyond our comfortable shores into new experiences where God intends to meet us. The disciples, loyal and accustomed to his ways, begin to prepare the boat. Some of them, Peter, Andrew, James, and John, are seasoned fishermen. This lake is their old friend, their place of work, their teacher of patience and resilience. You watch as they move with familiar efficiency, their hands calloused but capable. They check the ropes, the sail though it may be furled for this evening crossing, relying on oars, and ensure the fishing nets are neatly stowed, not needed for this particular journey. Their readiness to follow, even when tired, speaks of a growing trust, a commitment to the path he lays before them. You feel a gentle nudge, an invitation to join them. Step carefully now, onto the wooden planks of the fishing boat. It's a sturdy vessel, perhaps 25 to 30 feet long, with a shallow draft. Designed for these waters, it smells of fish, of damp wood, of the lake itself, an honest, earthy fragrance. The boat rocks slightly as you find a place to settle. Feel the worn smoothness of the wood beneath your hands. It's not a grand ship, but a humble working boat, a vessel that has known both the bounty of the lake and its sudden furies. It is often in the simple, ordinary vessels of our lives that Christ chooses to reveal his most extraordinary power. Several other small boats, as the Scriptures tell us, also begin to push off from the shore, their occupants perhaps wanting to stay close to the teacher, or simply journeying in the same direction, seeking the same evening passage. A small flotilla, embarking under the fading light. We are never truly alone in our journey of faith. There are always others nearby, sharing the path, even if their boats are small and their presence quiet. With a final push, your boat glides away from the land. The sounds of the shore, the distant bleating of a goat, the faint murmur of voices, the barking of a dog begin to recede, replaced by the more intimate sounds of your journey, the rhythmic creak of the oarlocks, as strong arms pull the heavy oars through the water, the gentle splash and gurgle as the hull cleaves the surface, the soft sighs of contentment or quiet conversation among the disciples. You can hear the water whispering against the sides of the boat, a constant, soothing murmur. Listen to the rhythms of grace in your own life, the gentle movements of the Spirit guiding you forward. Even when the destination is not entirely clear, the air grows cooler still. A light breeze, a mere zephyr, kisses your cheek, carrying the scent of unseen reeds and distant oleanders. Look up. The first stars are beginning to prick the darkening velvet of the sky. One by one, they appear, distant diamonds scattered across the vast expanse, ancient witnesses to countless journeys like this one. The vastness of the cosmos above and the depth of the water below can make one feel very small, yet also strangely connected to something immense and eternal. In moments of quiet awe before creation, our hearts naturally lift in reverence to the Creator, acknowledging His majesty and our place within His grand design. Jesus finds a spot, perhaps towards the stern of the boat, where a boatman might keep a cushion or a mat. He is visibly tired. The demands of the day, the constant outpouring of spiritual energy, the weight of human suffering he has absorbed, it all settles upon him. He lies down, and very soon, his breathing becomes deep and regular. He is asleep, truly asleep, not a light doze, but a profound rest. There's a beautiful humanity in Jesus' ability to sleep so soundly, a trust in His Father's care that allows Him complete repose, even in a boat tossed by coming waves. It teaches us the peace that comes from true surrender. The disciples continue their rowing. Some may be speaking in hushed tones, their voices a low murmur. Perhaps they recount the events of the day, the healings that astonished them, the parables that puzzled and enlightened them. Maybe Peter, ever impulsive, is boasting lightly of his rowing prowess, or Andrew is quietly mending a small tear in a net, his movements economical and practiced. John, perhaps, is gazing at the stars, his heart already pondering the deeper mysteries of this man who now sleeps so peacefully among them. The fellowship of believers, sharing the journey, supporting one another through word and deed, is a precious gift, a microcosm of the church itself. You feel the gentle, rocking motion of the boat. It's a rhythmic sway, back and forth, side to side, a cradle on the water. Allow yourself to be lulled by it. It's a peaceful motion for now. The lake is calm, its surface like dark, polished glass, reflecting the emerging starlight and the faint luminescence of the western horizon, where the sun has set. The hills surrounding the lake are now dark, undulating silhouettes against the starlit sky. You can just make out the faint lights of distant villages scattered along the shoreline, tiny beacons in the vast darkness. God often leads us through periods of calm, seasons of gentle rocking, preparing us, strengthening us for challenges that may lie ahead, unseen beyond the present peace. The historian Josephus wrote of Galilee's beauty, its fertile lands, and the abundance of this very lake. It was a place of life, of sustenance. The water beneath you is deep, in places over 100 feet. It's a significant body of water, about 13 miles long and 8 miles wide at its broadest point. For centuries, people have drawn life from it and have also respected its power. The very elements that sustain us can also test us, a duality that is part of our created world, inviting us to rely not on the created, but on the Creator. As you drift further from the shore, a deeper quiet settles. The only sounds are those of the boat and the water, and perhaps the distant call of a night bird. It's a time for reflection. Think about the day that has passed, the blessings received, the lessons learned. Feel any lingering tensions begin to ease, carried away by the gentle rhythm of the waves. Nightfall often brings a sacred stillness, an opportunity to commune with God away from the distractions of the day. Embrace this holy quiet. The disciples, though some are experienced sailors, are still human. Perhaps a flicker of unease passes through one or two of them as they head into the wider, deeper part of the lake at night. The lake, while familiar, also holds its secrets, its potential for sudden change. But the presence of Jesus, even asleep, must bring a measure of reassurance. He is with them. He has led them into this boat, onto this journey. Faith is not the absence of apprehension, but the choice to trust in God's presence and guidance, even when the way ahead is dark or uncertain. Consider the courage it took for these men to leave their former lives, their nets, their families, their familiar routines to follow this itinerant teacher. It was a journey into the unknown, filled with uncertainty, yet also with profound hope and the undeniable magnetism of Jesus himself. Each day was an unfolding revelation. Our own spiritual journeys often require us to leave behind the familiar and step out in faith, trusting that He who calls us will also equip and sustain us. The water itself holds so much symbolism in the Scriptures. It's a symbol of chaos and judgment, as in the great flood, but also of cleansing, of life, of the Holy Spirit. Here, on Lake Galilee, it is the setting for so many of Jesus' miracles and teachings. It's almost a character in the story of the Gospels. Water, in its gentle lapping or its mighty roar, reminds us of God's power and His ability to bring life and renewal out of even the most turbulent situations. Imagine the coolness of the air on your face, the scent of the water, the vast expanse of the starlit sky above. You are in the boat, surrounded by these men who walked with Jesus, who heard His voice, who witnessed His love firsthand. There's a holiness in this imagined proximity, a chance to feel, just for a moment, what it might have been like. The Scriptures invite us into these sacred scenes, not just as observers, but as participants in spirit, allowing the ancient story to become personally transformative. The gentle rocking continues, back and forth, side to side. It's a soothing rhythm, conducive to quiet contemplation or even to sleep. If you feel your own eyelids growing heavy, that's perfectly natural. Allow the peace of this moment to envelop you. You are safe, you are held. God's peace can be like a gentle lullaby to the soul, calming our anxieties and allowing us to rest in His care. The boat moves steadily onward. The oars dip and rise, a steady heartbeat in the stillness of the night. Perhaps one of the disciples hums a quiet psalm, a melody learned in childhood. Its words a comfort in the darkness. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want, or he who dwells in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. The songs of faith, carried in the heart, can be a source of strength and solace, especially when we venture into unknown waters or through shadowy valleys. Think of the trust Jesus placed in His disciples, and they in Him. He was willing to be vulnerable, to sleep in their care, while they were willing to row into the night at His word. This mutual trust is a beautiful picture of the relationship He desires with each of us. He invites us to trust Him with our journey, and in return, He entrusts us with carrying His presence and His work into the world. The shores are now distant. You are in the middle of the lake, or at least far enough out that the sense of being enveloped by water and sky is complete. The world has shrunk to this small wooden boat, its precious cargo, and the vast, dark expanse around you. It is a moment of profound intimacy, a world apart. Sometimes, God leads us to places where all earthly supports seem distant, so that we might learn to rely more fully on Him alone. Notice the texture of the air. It's growing a little more humid, perhaps a little heavier. The breeze, which was so gentle before, might be picking up just a fraction, almost imperceptibly at first. The surface of the water, while still relatively calm, might show a few more ripples, a little more movement. The disciples, with their ingrained knowledge of the lake, might exchange a glance, a subtle acknowledgement of the lake's known capacity for change. Lake Galilee is uniquely situated, nestled low between surrounding hills, and this geography makes it prone to sudden, violent storms as cooler air funnels down from the heights and collides with the warmer, moist air over the water. The gentle beginnings of a journey do not always guarantee a placid continuation. Life, like this lake, can change its mood with surprising speed. But for now, all is still predominantly peaceful. The overarching sensation is one of calm, of gentle movement, of quiet anticipation. The stars above seem to grow brighter as your eyes adjust to the darkness. You might pick out familiar constellations or simply marvel at the sheer number of them. A glittering tapestry woven by God's hand. The heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament shows his handiwork. Day unto day utters speech, and night unto night reveals knowledge. Psalm 19:1-2. Even in silence, creation speaks volumes of its creator. Jesus sleeps on. His face, even in repose, carries an aura of peace, of profound connection to the divine. It's the sleep of one who is utterly secure, perfectly at one with his Father's will. This image of the sleeping Christ, so human and yet so deeply divine, has captivated artists and theologians for centuries. His rest is a testament to his trust, a model for our own surrender to God's sovereignty. Even when storms may be gathering unknown to us, the rhythmic creak of the oarlocks, the swish of the oars, the lapping of water against the hull, these are the dominant sounds. They form a natural symphony, a backdrop to your thoughts and prayers. Allow these sounds to deepen your sense of peace, to draw you further into this sacred moment. There is a music in the mundane when we journey with God, a holy rhythm in the ordinary tasks performed in his presence. The boat continues its steady progress across the dark waters. You are suspended between two shores, between the day that is past and the dawn that is yet to come. It's a liminal space, a time of transition. Many moments in our spiritual lives are like this, a journey between what was and what will be. A time of patient movement and quiet trust in the one who charts the course. Imagine the feel of the night air on your skin, cool and soft. Perhaps you draw a cloak a little closer round you. The disciples, too, are dressed for the cooler night temperatures on the lake. They are hardy men, accustomed to the elements, but the chill of the night is palpable. God provides for our needs, both physical and spiritual. Just as a cloak offers warmth, his presence offers comfort and protection to our souls. The other small boats that set out with you are still nearby, their dim shapes visible on the dark water, perhaps a faint lantern glow from one or two of them. There's a comfort in knowing you are not the only ones on this journey. Even if each boat must navigate its own path through the water, the church is a communion of saints, a flotilla of souls journeying together towards the heavenly shore, offering mutual support and encouragement along the way. Consider the purpose of this crossing. Jesus often crossed the lake to find solitude for prayer, or to reach different communities with his message of hope. Each journey had a divine purpose, even if it wasn't immediately apparent to the disciples. Our lives, too, are filled with journeys, transitions, and crossings. We can trust that each one, when surrendered to God, has a purpose within his larger plan, even if we only understand it in hindsight. The gentle rocking of the boat continues to be a soothing presence. It's a physical reminder of the lake's embrace, of the water that bears you up. For now, it is a friendly embrace. The natural world, in its calmer moments, can be a profound teacher of God's gentle care and sustaining power. He holds us, just as the water holds this boat. Think of the disciples' hearts, after a day filled with the miraculous and the profound. What thoughts are settling within them? Awe, certainly. Perhaps some confusion, as they try to reconcile Jesus' power with his deep humility. Maybe a growing sense of love and devotion for this extraordinary man. Our encounters with the divine often leave us with a mixture of awe, wonder, and a longing to understand more. This is the nature of a faith that is alive and growing. The stars seem to hang like lanterns in the immense, dark dome of the sky, the Milky Way. A river of light might be visible, arching overhead. It's a sight that inspires humility and wonder. Contemplating the vastness of the universe can shrink our own worries and remind us of the infinite power and creativity of God. He who set these stars in place also knows your name and cares for your every concern. The air is still, save for the gentle breeze created by the boat's own motion through the water, or the faintest of natural currents. The surface of the lake mirrors the stars, creating a sense of floating in a sea of light. Both above and below, it is a moment of exquisite, fragile beauty. Beauty, in its purest form, often points us towards God, the source of all that is lovely and true. It can quiet the mind and open the heart to his presence. Jesus' sleeping form is a focal point of peace within the boat. While the disciples toil at the oars, he rests. It's a picture of divine trust and human weariness coexisting. His sleep is not one of negligence, but of perfect peace. We too are called to find that place of inner rest in God, even amidst the labors and challenges of our lives. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Matthew 11:28. The silence of the night is broken only by the subtle sounds of the journey. It's a silence that allows for introspection, for prayer, for simply being present to the moment. In our noisy world, moments of deep quiet are precious. They are opportunities to hear the still, small voice of God speaking to our hearts. The boat is a small sanctuary of warmth and life in the midst of the cool, dark expanse of the lake. Here, with Jesus and his disciples, you are part of a sacred fellowship, journeying under the silent gaze of the stars. The community of faith is meant to be a sanctuary, a place of warmth, light, and shared journeying, especially when the world around feels dark or uncertain. The disciples, though experienced, know that the Sea of Galilee can be treacherous. Its moods can change with alarming speed due to the winds that can sweep down from the surrounding hills and ravines, particularly the Golan Heights to the east. This knowledge is part of their lived experience. For now, however, their rowing is steady, their breathing even, as they pull together, moving the boat through the calm, dark waters. Even in times of peace, wisdom reminds us to be prepared, to be vigilant, not with fear, but with a reliance on the one who is our constant protector. The gentle lapping of the water against the hull is like a soft heartbeat, a rhythm that underscores the peace of this initial part of the journey. It's a sound that invites you to relax, to let go of any tension, to simply be. Find the rhythms of grace in your own life, the steady, quiet ways God makes his presence known, and allow them to bring you to a place of inner stillness. As you look out over the water, the shoreline is now a very distant, faint line. Almost lost in the darkness, you are truly out in the open, entrusted to the boat and the water. There is a sense of leaving behind the familiar, the secure, and venturing into the unknown. Every act of faith involves a leaving of some shore, a willingness to journey into the unfamiliar, trusting in God's guidance and provision. The scent of the water, the cool air, the immense, starry sky, all these sensory details immerse you in this moment. You are not just hearing a story, you are, in a way, participating in it, feeling it. The Bible is a living word, and its stories have the power to transport us, to allow us to encounter God in new and profound ways. The darkness is not absolute. The starlight provides a faint, silvery illumination, giving soft definition to the shapes around you, the figures of the disciples, the mast of the boat, the glint of light on the oars as they move. It's a gentle darkness, a peaceful darkness, even in times of literal or metaphorical darkness. God's light is never fully extinguished. There are always glimmers of hope, stars of promise, to guide our way. Jesus, in his slumber, is the embodiment of peace. He who is the Prince of Peace rests, trusting in his Father. His presence, even in sleep, sanctifies this little boat, makes it a holy space. Where Christ is, there is peace, even if it is a peace that rests quietly in the midst of potential turmoil. Invite his peaceful presence into every part of your life. The journey continues, or stroke by or stroke, across the placid face of Lake Galilee. The night deepens, the world sleeps, and you are here in this boat, on this ancient sea, feeling the gentle rocking, the cool air, the profound sense of peace that precedes the unexpected. It is a sacred interlude, a moment of calm before the elements themselves will be stirred to fury, a moment to store up the peace in your heart. Cherish the quiet seasons of life, the times of gentle sailing, for they build our resilience and deepen our trust for whatever lies ahead on the voyage. The disciples are rowing with a practiced rhythm, their movements synchronized. Born of long experience on these waters, they are making good progress, the lights of the western shore receding further and further into the velvet darkness, while the eastern shore, their destination, still lies unseen beyond the horizon of the water. This is a journey of faith in more ways than one. The very air seems to hold its breath, a profound stillness that amplifies the small sounds, the drip of water from a raised oar, a quiet cough from one of the men, the almost inaudible sigh of Jesus in his deep sleep. You can almost feel the pulse of the earth, the ancient rhythm of night following day. In these moments of profound quiet, when all the world seems hushed, The veil between the seen and unseen feels wonderfully thin, and the presence of the eternal draws near. The boat itself, a simple wooden craft, becomes a microcosm of the world, carrying its hopes, its human frailties, and its divine passenger. It is a vessel of passage, moving from one experience to another, as we all are, in our own lives. Our lives are journeys, filled with passages from one shore to another, from one understanding to a deeper one, always under the watchful care of the divine pilot. Part 2. The peaceful rhythm you've settled into, that gentle rocking, and the soft sounds of the oars, begins to subtly change. It's almost imperceptible at first, like a shift in the breathing of the night. The air, which was cool and still, now carries a different quality. You might feel a faint restlessness in it, a subtle pressure change that experienced ears, like those of the fishermen disciples, would register even before their minds fully process it. Life's storms often gather quietly, their first signs mere whispers against the backdrop of our current peace, reminding us to remain ever watchful and rooted in faith. A puff of wind, stronger than any before, skitters across the surface of the lake, ruffling the dark, glassy water into 1,000 tiny, fleeting wrinkles. It sighs through the mast and any rigging, a low, mournful sound like a warning. Another follows, and then another, each one a little bolder, a little more insistent. The gentle rocking of the boat becomes less predictable, more of a sharper nudge than a sway. The onset of trials can be gradual, then suddenly urgent, testing the foundations we have built during times of calm. Look towards the north, or perhaps from the eastern heights of the Golan, from whence these winds often come. The stars in that part of the sky, which were so brilliant just moments ago, seem to be dimming, hazed over by an unseen veil. A darkness, deeper than the natural darkness of night, is gathering there, blotting out the celestial lights. It's a brooding, ominous presence, expanding rapidly, silently devouring the starlit peace. Spiritual darkness can also creep into our lives, attempting to obscure the light of God's promises. But His light is never truly extinguished, only temporarily veiled to our perception. The disciples, seasoned men of the lake, exchange uneasy glances. Their cheerful or quiet conversations cease. Their movements, while still efficient, now carry a new tension. They begin to pull harder on the oars, their faces set with a grim determination, hoping perhaps to outrun the approaching disturbance or reach a more sheltered part of the lake. They know the sea. They know its capacity for sudden, unbridled fury. The Kinneret, lying so low in the Jordan Rift Valley, surrounded by hills, is a natural funnel for winds that can be whipped into a frenzy with terrifying speed. Experience and skill are valuable, yet even the most seasoned among us will face moments that stretch our abilities to their limits, compelling us to look beyond our own strength. The wind is no longer just a puff, it's a tangible force, pressing against your face, whipping stray strands of hair around you. It begins to moan, then whine, and soon it will roar. The surface of the lake transforms before your eyes. The gentle lapping is gone, replaced by choppy waves that slap against the hull with increasing violence. The boat, which felt so stable before, now lurches and pitches. Spray, cold and sharp, begins to fly over the bow, stinging your skin. The comforts we take for granted can be swiftly stripped away, revealing our vulnerability and our deep need for a steadfast anchor. Jesus sleeps on, in the stern of the boat. He remains undisturbed, his breathing even, his form relaxed. It is an almost surreal contrast to the growing chaos around him. His peace is a profound island in the midst of the rising tempest. The peace of Christ is not the absence of storms, but the presence of God within them, a steadfast serenity that the world cannot give, nor take away. The disciples shout to one another now, their voices strain to be heard above the rising shriek of the wind. Their words are clipped, urgent commands regarding the handling of the boat, perhaps an attempt to secure anything loose, or to adjust their rowing to meet the increasingly chaotic waves. You see the strain on their faces, illuminated briefly by flashes of distant lightning that are now beginning to tear through the oppressive darkness to the north, followed by the low, guttural rumble of thunder, still far off, but approaching like an angry beast. In times of crisis, human communication becomes essential, yet limited. It is the unspoken language of shared fear and desperate hope that often binds us most tightly. The storm is upon you now, not gradually, but with a sudden, overwhelming rush. As if a dam has burst in the heavens, the wind howls with a demonic fury, tearing at the boat, trying to rip it apart. The waves, which were choppy, are now monstrous. They rise up like black, angry mountains, their crests whipped into white foam by the relentless wind, and then crash down with terrifying force, sending torrents of icy water cascading over the sides of the small vessel. The boat is tossed about like a toy, lifted high on the crest of a wave one moment, then plunging sickeningly into a deep trough the next, the dark water churning and boiling all around. The fury of nature can be awe-inspiring and terrifying, a raw display of power that dwarfs human strength and ingenuity, pointing to the even greater power of the one who created it. Rain begins to fall, not a gentle shower, but a blinding deluge, lashing down with such intensity that it feels like needles on your skin. It's cold, and mixed with the spray from the waves, it soaks you through in an instant. Visibility drops to almost nothing. You can barely see the man next to you, only his dark, hunched shape battling the elements. The world has become a maelstrom of roaring wind, crashing waves, and driving rain. When trials overwhelm us, our vision can become obscured, our sense of direction lost. It is then we must cling to what we know to be true, to the unseen presence of God. The disciples are fighting for their lives. These are not novices. They are men who have spent their existence on this lake. They have weathered storms before, but there is a terror in their eyes now, a dawning realization that this is no ordinary squall. This is a storm of exceptional violence, a megaslylapse. As the Greek text describes it, a great tempest, a hurricane-force wind. Their skill, their strength, their knowledge of the lake, all of it seems utterly inadequate in the face of this elemental rage. There are storms in life that exceed all our human capacities, designed, perhaps, to bring us to the end of ourselves, that we might discover the beginning of God's limitless power. The boat groans and creaks under the tremendous strain. Every plank, every timber, seems to cry out in protest. Water is pouring in, not just from the spray and rain, but from waves breaking directly into the boat. It sloshes around your ankles, then your calves. Cold and menacing, the disciples are bailing, some of them abandoning the oars to scoop water out with whatever containers they can find. But it's a losing battle. The water is rising faster than they can remove it. The boat is filling, it's foundering. Desperation can set in when our best efforts prove futile, when the floodwaters of adversity threaten to engulf us. It is in these moments that our prayers often become most raw, most urgent. And still, Jesus sleeps. His sleep is a profound mystery in this moment. How can he rest amidst such violent turmoil? Is he unaware, uncaring? These thoughts might even flicker through your own mind, mirroring the disciples' growing panic. His peaceful form, curled on the cushion in the stern, is a stark, almost unbearable contrast to the life and death struggle consuming everyone else. For centuries, theologians have marveled at this part of the story, the sleeping Christ. Is it a symbol of his perfect trust in the Father, a test of the disciples' faith, a demonstration that the chaos of the world cannot touch the divine peace within him? Perhaps all of these. The wind shrieks like a banshee, its voice a symphony of terror. The waves are relentless, lifting the boat high and then slamming it down with bone-jarring force. Each impact feels like it could be the last, the one that splinters the hull and sends them all into the raging, black depths. The darkness is almost absolute, broken only by the terrifying, stark white flashes of lightning that illuminate the scene for a split second, revealing a vision of pure chaos, wild-eyed men. The boat awash, mountainous waves towering above them, then darkness again, and the deafening roar of the storm. The storms of life can feel like they will break us, like the darkness will swallow us whole. Yet, even in the fiercest tempest, God's eye is upon us. Imagine the sheer physical exertion of the disciples, their muscles burning, their lungs gasping for air, their hands raw and bleeding from gripping the oars or bailing buckets. Add to that the bitter cold, the drenching rain, and the overwhelming, soul-crushing fear. They are at the very edge of their endurance, their hope rapidly fading. God sometimes allows us to reach the limits of our own strength, so that we can learn to rely entirely on His. It is when we are weakest that His power is often most perfectly revealed. The other small boats that set out with them, where are they? In this maelstrom. It's impossible to know. Have they already succumbed to the waves? Are they, too, fighting a desperate battle for survival? The thought adds another layer of dread. Concern for others, even in our own extremity, is a mark of compassion. True faith is not solely about self-preservation, but also about love for our neighbors. The geographical uniqueness of the Sea of Galilee, as mentioned before, contributes significantly to these sudden, violent storms. Situated over 680 feet below sea level and surrounded by hills, particularly the cooler highlands to the east and west, it creates a perfect scenario for katabatic winds, cold, dense air from the hills rushing down the slopes and converging over the warmer lake. This can happen with astonishing speed, transforming a placid surface into a raging inferno of wind and water within minutes. The disciples knew this, but the ferocity of this particular storm seems to exceed even their worst experiences. Understanding the natural causes of our difficulties does not diminish their impact, nor does it negate the possibility of a divine hand at work within and through them. The boat is dangerously low in the water now, heavy and sluggish, responding poorly to the helm or the remaining oars. Each wave that crashes over the gunwales brings them closer to capsizing, closer to being swallowed by the lake. The disciples are shouting, but their words are snatched away by the wind, lost in the cacophony. Fear is a palpable presence, cold and suffocating. The feeling of sinking, of being overwhelmed, is a common human experience in times of severe trial. It is a feeling that can drive us to our knees or to the feet of the Savior. Consider the faith of these men, or rather, its current state. They had left everything to follow Jesus. They had witnessed His miracles, heard His teachings. But in this moment, faced with the raw, untamed power of nature, their faith is being severely tested, perhaps even faltering. The immediate, physical threat to their lives overshadows, for a time, the spiritual realities they have come to know. Even strong faith can be shaken by overwhelming circumstances. It is not the absence of fear or doubt that defines faith, but where we turn in those moments of terror. The sound of the wind is not just a roar. It has a voice, a terrifying, inhuman voice that seems to mock their efforts, to promise destruction. The waves are like fists, pummeling the small boat relentlessly. The rain is a solid sheet of water, blinding them, chilling them to the bone. It's a sensory overload of terror. Sometimes the noise of our problems can be so deafening that it becomes difficult to hear the still, small voice of God. We must intentionally seek to quiet the outer chaos to find the inner calm where He speaks. Jesus, in His sleep, presents a paradox. Is He indifferent to their plight, or is His sleep a profound statement of trust and sovereignty? The disciples, in their terror, likely lean towards the former, or at least, they cannot comprehend how He can sleep through such a cataclysm. Our human perspective is often limited. We see the storm, God sees the outcome. We feel the fear, He holds the peace. Learning to trust His perspective over our own is a lifelong journey of faith. The boat takes another violent lurch, and a particularly large wave crashes directly amidships, filling the already swamped vessel with even more water. A cry of despair might escape from one of the disciples. This is it. They are going down. The end seems terrifyingly, unavoidably near. There are moments in life that feel like the absolute end, where hope seems extinguished. These are often the very moments that precede a divine intervention. The darkness before a new dawn. The cultural context of the time often viewed the sea as a place of chaos, of primordial disorder, a realm often associated with demonic powers or forces hostile to God and humanity. For these Jewish men, such a storm might have carried not just physical terror, but also a sense of spiritual dread, as if they were battling more than just wind and waves. The ancient world often personified the forces of nature, and a raging sea could be seen as a manifestation of powers opposed to divine order. Jesus' ultimate authority over such forces would thus be a profound theological statement. The disciples' experience as fishermen, which normally gave them confidence on the water, now serves only to highlight the extreme danger they are in. They know, better than any landlubber, just how precarious their situation has become. They know what it means for a boat to be swamped this badly, this far from shore. In a storm of this magnitude, their professional knowledge amplifies their fear. Sometimes our expertise can become a source of anxiety when faced with situations that exceed our known parameters. It is then that we must lean on a wisdom greater than our own. The darkness remains profound, a thick, oppressive blanket broken only by the strobing, momentary glare of lightning. Each flash reveals the same terrifying scene: the boat, nearly submerged, the wild, desperate faces of the disciples, the colossal, black waves rearing up around them. It's a scene from a nightmare. In our darkest hours, when we feel most lost and overwhelmed, it is crucial to remember that God's light can penetrate any darkness, that His presence is with us even when we cannot see Him clearly. The physical toll on the disciples is immense. They are exhausted, soaked, freezing, and battling for every breath against the wind. Their arms ache, their backs scream in protest, but they continue to fight, to bail, to try and keep the boat afloat, driven by the primal instinct for survival. Human resilience is a remarkable gift from God, the ability to endure, to persevere even in the face of overwhelming odds. But even this resilience has its limits. And Jesus sleeps, His head on a cushion, His body relaxed, as if He were in a peaceful room rather than in the heart of a raging tempest. This image is so powerful, so challenging. It forces us to confront our own anxieties, our own reactions to the storms in our lives. Do we panic? Do we despair? Or can we, too, find a place of inner rest? A trust so profound that it allows us to sleep, metaphorically, through the gale? The invitation to rest in the Lord is not just for calm days, but for stormy nights as well. It is a rest found not in the absence of turmoil, but in the assurance of His presence and power. The boat is now more water than wood, wallowing heavily, barely responsive. It's a miracle it hasn't already broken apart or capsized. The disciples know this. Their efforts are becoming more frantic, more desperate. The time for skill and strategy is past. Now it is only raw effort against overwhelming odds. When human effort reaches its nadir, the stage is often set for divine power to be most clearly displayed. Our extremity is God's opportunity. The wind howls like a wolf pack, and the waves continue their relentless assault. The storm is not abating. If anything, it seems to be intensifying. The air itself feels thick with malevolence, with a destructive energy that is terrifying to behold and experience. The spiritual battles we face can also feel like this, relentless assaults of negativity, doubt, and fear. But greater is He that is in you than he that is in the world. 1 John 4:4. This is not just a physical storm. It is becoming a spiritual crisis for the disciples. Their understanding of Jesus, their faith in His power and care, is being pushed to the breaking point. How can the Messiah, the one they believe has come to save Israel, be oblivious to their imminent demise? Crises often force us to reevaluate our faith, to dig deeper, to ask hard questions. This process, though painful, can lead to a more mature and resilient trust in God. The cold is seeping into their bones, a deep, numbing chill that saps their remaining strength and resolve. Hypothermia is a real threat. Even if they weren't in danger of drowning, the sheer misery of their situation is profound. Suffering can strip away all pretense, leaving us bare and vulnerable before God. It is in this vulnerability that we can often experience His comfort and strength most profoundly. The constant, deafening noise of the storm is an assault on the senses, disorienting, making it hard to think, hard to pray, hard to do anything but react to the immediate, terrifying onslaught. It's a noise that seems to want to drown out all hope, all reason, the noise of the world. Its anxieties and distractions can also try to drown out the voice of God in our lives. We must cultivate inner quiet to hear Him above the din. Yet, even in this utter chaos, even in this heart of darkness, Jesus sleeps. His peace is an anchor, unseen by the disciples in their panic, but present nonetheless. His very presence in the boat, though seemingly inactive, is a silent promise. God's presence is always with us, even when we are not consciously aware of it, even when we feel abandoned. He is the silent watcher, the sleeping King who holds all power in His hands. The disciples, reaching the absolute limit of their endurance and their hope, are on the verge of a collective cry, a desperate appeal born not of fading faith, but of faith gasping for air in the face of overwhelming terror. The storm rages on, a testament to the raw, untamed power inherent in creation, a power that only its creator can truly command. The boat is now a barely floating wreck, heavy with water, tossed mercilessly by the colossal waves that seem to rise from the very depths of the lake's fury. The wind doesn't just howl, it screams, a high-pitched, relentless shriek that tears at your ears and seems to pierce your very soul. Each disciple, though a strong man, is battered, exhausted, and chilled to the core. Their efforts to bail water are now almost futile. For every bucketful they desperately fling overboard, a new wave crashes in, dumping gallons more into the beleaguered vessel. You feel the utter despair beginning to settle upon them, a cold, heavy blanket smothering the last embers of their hope. It is often in the deepest troughs of despair, when our own strength is utterly exhausted, that the human heart finally cries out for a power beyond itself. Peter, perhaps, is the first to break, always impulsive, always passionate. His fear now matches his usual fervor. His face, illuminated by a savage flash of lightning, is a mask of terror and disbelief. He stumbles, or rather, lurches through the swirling water that sloshes thigh-deep in the boat, making his way towards the stern where Jesus still lies asleep. His movements are clumsy, desperate, hindered by the violent pitching of the boat and the sheer weight of his waterlogged garments. Fear can lend a desperate strength, a final surge of adrenaline when all seems lost, propelling us towards any perceived source of help. He reaches the stern, bracing himself against the gunwale as the boat is slammed by another monstrous wave. He looks down at Jesus, and for a moment, incomprehension might war with his terror. How can anyone sleep through this? This isn't just a storm, it's an apocalypse in miniature. A watery hell. The other disciples, seeing Peter's movement, or perhaps sharing his desperate impulse, turn their attention, their last vestiges of hope, towards the sleeping master. Their faces, pale and drawn in the fleeting, stark illumination of the lightning, are turned towards him. When all human agency fails, when every earthly support is stripped away, the soul instinctively looks for a higher power, a divine intervention. Master, Master! Peter's voice is raw, hoarse, barely audible above the tempest's roar. But it's a cry torn from the very depths of his being. It's not a respectful address in this moment, it's a shriek of desperation. He might reach out, his hand trembling, to shake Jesus' shoulder, roughly, urgently. There's no time for gentleness, for decorum. Their lives are hanging by a thread that is fraying with every passing second. The prayers born of extreme distress are often unadorned, stripped of all formality, reduced to the raw, essential plea for help. God hears these prayers, no matter how broken or panicked they may sound. The other disciples join in the cry, their voices blending into a chorus of fear and desperation. Teacher, do you not care that we are perishing? The question hangs in the chaotic air, heavy with accusation, with bewildered anguish. It's a cry that echoes down through the centuries, a question humanity has often flung at the heavens in times of overwhelming suffering. Do you not care? It speaks of a faith pushed to its limit, a trust strained by the apparent indifference of the divine in the face of their agony. It's a profoundly human cry, this questioning of God's care in the midst of suffering. The Bible does not shy away from portraying these raw emotions, these moments of doubt and desperate pleading. It validates our own struggles when we feel unheard or unseen in our trials. Imagine the scene, the boat on the verge of sinking, waves crashing over it, wind tearing at everything, rain lashing down, and these terrified men, their faces contorted with fear, shaking their teacher awake, their voices filled with a desperate, almost accusatory urgency. Their cry is not just for physical salvation, it's a plea for Jesus to acknowledge their plight, to show that he is indeed the caring shepherd they have begun to believe him to be. Our deepest need in suffering is often not just for the suffering to end, but for the assurance that we are not alone in it, that someone cares, someone sees. Jesus stirs. He opens his eyes. There is no grogginess, no disorientation, as one might expect from someone roused so abruptly from a deep sleep, especially in such chaotic circumstances. He simply awakens, his gaze calm, his presence immediately imbued with that profound serenity that is his hallmark. He takes in the scene the foundering boat, the terrified faces of his disciples, the raging storm all in a single, encompassing glance. There is no surprise in his eyes, no fear. The contrast between his serene awakening and the disciples' frantic terror is stark, highlighting the immense gulf between divine perspective and human panic. He sees not just the storm, but the Father's hand within and beyond it. He looks at his disciples, his gaze perhaps holding a touch of gentle rebuke, or maybe profound compassion for their fear. The scriptures record his words slightly differently in the various Gospels, but the essence is the same. Matthew's account has him saying, "Why are you afraid, O you of little faith?" Mark's account, which we are largely following in its vividness, has him first dealing with the storm, and then questioning their fear. Luke is similar. Let's imagine that moment of waking, his eyes meeting theirs, his first concern, even before addressing the elemental fury, often seems to be the state of their hearts, their fear, their lack of trust. The inner storm is often more critical to address than the outer one. The disciples are still babbling, perhaps pointing frantically at the waves, at the water filling the boat, their words tumbling out in a torrent of fear. "We are going to drown, don't you see?" Their focus is entirely on the imminent, physical danger. They have seen his power before, his miracles of healing, his command over demonic forces. But this is different. This is the raw, untamed power of creation itself unleashed against them. Can his power extend even to this? Their desperate hope is mixed with a profound, terrified uncertainty. Even when we have witnessed God's power in one area of our lives, it can be a struggle to trust that his power extends to new and more terrifying challenges. Faith must constantly grow and expand its understanding of God's sovereignty. Jesus doesn't immediately engage in a lengthy discussion or explanation. The situation is too dire for that. The boat is moments from being swallowed by the lake. He rises, or perhaps he simply sits up, his form a steady point of stillness in the wildly bucking boat. He doesn't need to shout to be heard over the storm. His authority is not in volume, but in inherent power. True authority does not need to bluster or yell. Its power is intrinsic, its presence commanding. God's voice can be a whisper, yet it can silence the loudest storms. He looks out at the raging tempest. He sees the wind tearing the water into furious peaks. He hears its demonic shriek. He feels the boat groaning beneath him, on the verge of disintegration. And then he speaks, not to the disciples, not yet. He speaks to the storm itself, as one would speak to an unruly child or a disobedient servant. This is a moment that transcends ordinary human experience. He is about to address the very elements of creation as if they have ears to hear, and able to obey. "Peace, be still." The Aramaic or Hebrew words he likely spoke would have carried immense power. The Greek siopa, pephamoso, translates to something like silence, be muzzled, or be quiet. Be gagged. It's a sharp, imperative command. There's no pleading, no negotiation. It is a direct, authoritative order from the one through whom all things were made. For centuries, theologians have marveled at the sheer audacity and power in these words. It reveals Jesus not merely as a great teacher or prophet, but as possessing divine authority over the natural world, the authority of the Creator himself. The effect is instantaneous. One moment, the wind is a howling, shrieking fury. The next, it is gone, not just diminished, not just dying down gradually, but utterly, completely, and instantly gone. The terrifying noise ceases as if a switch has been thrown. The oppressive pressure of the wind vanishes. An almost shocking silence descends, broken only by the sound of water still sloshing in the boat and the dripping of rain that, too, is now rapidly ceasing. The suddenness of the calm is as miraculous as the stilling itself. God's interventions can be immediate and absolute, transforming situations in the blink of an eye, in ways we can scarcely comprehend. And the waves, the mountainous, raging waves, which had been threatening to engulf them, also obey. They don't just gradually subside, they collapse, they flatten. The churning, boiling surface of the lake, in a matter of moments, becomes smooth again. Or at least, the great, dangerous waves are stilled. There might still be a swell, the residual motion of such a great disturbance, But the violent, life-threatening chaos is over. The lake lies subdued, its fury spent, its power broken by a simple command. The power of Christ's word is absolute. He spoke the universe into existence. He can speak peace into its most chaotic manifestations. This same power is available to bring peace to the storms in our own hearts and lives. Imagine the disciples. 1 second, they are in the throes of ultimate terror, certain of their impending death. The next, they are surrounded by an almost unnatural, profound stillness. The silence, after the deafening roar, must be almost as shocking as the storm itself. They are left gaping, dumbfounded, water dripping from their soaked hair and clothes, their hearts still pounding from the adrenaline and fear. But now a new emotion is beginning to dawn: awe. A profound, overwhelming, and perhaps even fearful awe. The experience of God's direct, overwhelming power can be terrifying in its own right, even when it is exercised for our salvation. It reveals our smallness, our utter dependence on Him, and the immensity of His being. They look at Jesus. He is calm, serene, as if He has just performed the most natural act in the world. He is not panting from exertion. He is not triumphant or boastful. He simply is, the master of wind and wave. His calm in the aftermath is as instructive as His power during the event. It speaks of an authority that is inherent, not asserted, a peace that is His very nature. Now, He turns to them, His disciples, who are still trying to process the impossible thing they have just witnessed. His voice is quiet, yet it cuts through their lingering shock. "Why are you so afraid?" He asks. Or, as in Mark, "Why are you so fearful? How is it that you have no faith?" Or in Luke, "Where is your faith?" His question is not one of condemnation, but perhaps of gentle disappointment, an invitation to reflect on their own hearts. He is probing the root of their terror, which was not just the storm, but a failure to fully trust in Him, even after all they had seen and experienced. The disciples have no answer. What can they say? They were indeed terrified. Their faith, in that moment of extremity, had wavered, had proven insufficient. They had forgotten or failed to believe that the one who was with them in the boat was more powerful than any storm. It is a humbling moment for them and for us. We, too, often find our faith wanting in the face of overwhelming trials. But God's grace meets us even in our littleness of faith, inviting us to grow. A great calm settles upon the lake, but also a great stillness settles upon the disciples. The silence in the boat is now thick with unspoken thoughts, with dawning, staggering realizations. They look at each other, their eyes wide. They look at Jesus, not with the familiarity of a teacher, but with a new, profound reverence, perhaps even a touch of fear, the kind of fear that is akin to holy awe, the fear of the Lord, which is the beginning of wisdom. Moments of divine revelation often leave us speechless, reshaping our understanding of God and ourselves. The old categories no longer fit. A new paradigm is being born. The boat, though still waterlogged, is no longer in danger of sinking. The immediate threat to their lives has passed, but a new, more profound question has arisen in its place. Who is this man? They thought they knew Him. They had followed Him, listened to Him, seen Him heal the sick and cast out demons. But this is something else entirely. To command the wind and the sea with a mere word, this is an attribute of God Himself. The disciples are being led, step by step, miracle by miracle, to a deeper understanding of Jesus' true identity. Each revelation peels back another layer, revealing more of His divine nature. "What manner of man is this?" they whisper to one another, "that even the winds and the sea obey Him." Matthew 8:27. Or as Mark puts it, "They feared exceedingly, and said one to another, What manner of man is this, that even the wind and the sea obey Him?" Mark 4:41. Their terror of the storm has been replaced by a reverent fear of Jesus. It's a pivotal moment in their journey of faith. The question, "Who is this?" is the central question of the Gospels, the question that Jesus Himself will eventually pose to them directly. Their answer to this question will define their lives and ours. The lesser-known detail from Mark's Gospel is that there were also with Him other little ships. What happened to them during this sudden, violent squall? The Scripture doesn't explicitly say, but if they survived, they too would have witnessed this incredible display of power from a distance, or at least, they would have experienced the sudden, inexplicable calming of the storm, Imagine their astonishment, their relief, and their subsequent questions. God's acts of power often have ripple effects, touching lives beyond those immediately involved, creating wider circles of wonder and testimony. Consider the cultural understanding of the sea for these Jewish men. As mentioned, the sea often symbolized chaos, the untamed, the unpredictable, even the demonic. For God to have dominion over the sea was a hallmark of His supreme power as creator and sustainer of the universe. The Psalms are filled with imagery of God ruling the raging seas. O Lord God of hosts, who is mighty like you, O Lord, with your faithfulness all around you? You rule the raging of the sea. When its waves rise, you still them. Psalm 89, 8-9. He made the storm be still, and the waves of the sea were hushed. Psalm 107-29. By His actions, Jesus is visibly demonstrating that He shares this divine prerogative. Jesus' miracle is not just a display of power, but a theological statement, revealing His unity with the God of Israel, the Lord of creation. The disciples are now faced with an awesome mystery. This man, who eats with them, walks with them, sleeps in their boat like any other weary human being, also commands the very fabric of creation with a word. How can these two realities coexist in one person? This is the mystery of the Incarnation, the divine Son who is also fully human. The paradox of Jesus fully God and fully man is a truth that the Church has pondered for centuries. It is a mystery that invites not so much logical dissection as worshipful contemplation. The journey to the other side is not yet complete. The boat still needs to be bailed out. They still need to row or sail the remaining distance. But everything has changed. The atmosphere in the boat is no longer one of frantic fear, but of hushed, reverent awe. They might go about the necessary tasks of clearing the water and resuming their course, but they do so with a new awareness, a new sense of wonder, and perhaps a new trepidation in the presence of their Master. After a profound encounter with God, we return to the ordinary tasks of life, but we are changed. The mundane is now tinged with the sacred, the familiar seen through new eyes. Think about the state of their faith now. Jesus had chided them for their little faith or no faith, yet it was their desperate, albeit fearful, cry that had awakened him. Even a small, imperfect faith, when turned towards Jesus, is enough to elicit His response. God does not require perfect faith from us, only a sincere turning towards Him. He meets us where we are, with the faith we have, however small it may seem, and He helps it to grow. The contrast between Jesus' sleep and His powerful command is a lesson in itself. His sleep demonstrated His perfect trust and peace in the Father. His command demonstrated His divine authority. He models both perfect reliance on God and perfect exercise of divine power. Jesus embodies both the perfect human response to God trust and the perfect divine action in the world power. In Him, we see the fullness of what it means to be in relationship with the Father. The disciples' question, "What manner of man is this?" is one that should resonate with us. Who is Jesus to you? Is He merely a good teacher, a moral example, or is He the Lord of creation, the Son of God, the one who can calm the storms in your life, both external and internal? This story challenges us to move beyond a superficial understanding of Jesus to a deeper, more profound recognition of His true identity and power. Our answer to this question will shape everything. The physical exhaustion of the disciples must be immense, yet it is now overshadowed by their spiritual and emotional state. They have been to the brink of death and back. They have witnessed a miracle that defies all natural explanation. They are in the presence of one who is clearly more than just a man. Profound spiritual experiences can often transcend physical sensations. The awe of God's presence can make us forget our weariness, our hunger, our discomfort. At least for a time, the memory of the storm's fury will remain with them, a terrifying reminder of their helplessness. But now, coupled with it, will be the even more powerful memory of Jesus' voice, His command, and the instantaneous, breathtaking calm. The juxtaposition of these two memories will forever shape their understanding of who He is. Our storm stories often become our most powerful testimonies when they are paired with the story of God's intervention, His deliverance, His peace. The darkness of the trial serves to highlight the brilliance of His light. This event is a turning point. It's more than just a nature miracle. It's an epiphany, a revelation of Jesus' divine glory. It's a glimpse behind the veil of his humanity to the awesome power of his divinity. The Gospels are carefully constructed narratives designed to lead the reader, like the disciples, to a saving knowledge of Jesus Christ. Each story, each miracle, is a deliberate step on that path of revelation. For those other little ships, if they weathered the storm and saw the sudden calm, their crews too must have been filled with wonder and questions. Perhaps they drew nearer to Jesus' boat in the aftermath, seeking an explanation, or simply to be near the source of such an astonishing event. When God acts powerfully, it naturally draws people to him, creating opportunities for witness and for deeper faith to be shared. The journey continues, but it is a different journey now. The disciples are quieter, more reflective. They are pondering the implications of what they have just seen. The gentle rocking of the boat, which has now resumed as the great waves have subsided into a more normal swell, is no longer just a lulling rhythm. It's a rhythm underscored by a profound sense of the sacred, a reminder of the one who holds the seas in the palm of his hand. Every experience with God changes us, deepens our understanding, and prepares us for the next stage of our journey with him. We are never the same after he has revealed himself to us in power. The air is fresh and clean after the rain, the sky beginning to show the first hints of pre-dawn light in the east, a promise of a new day, a day that will dawn on men who have been irrevocably changed. Their fear has been transformed into awe, their desperation into a wondering reverence. The immediate, terrifying violence of the storm has passed, replaced by a silence so profound it feels almost tangible. The wind, which was a shrieking tormentor moments ago, is now utterly absent. The monstrous waves have collapsed, their fury spent, leaving the surface of Lake Galilee subdued, perhaps with a gentle, residual swell, like the deep breaths of a giant after a great exertion. You can hear the water lapping softly against the hull of the boat again, a sound that was drowned out by the tempest, but now returns, strangely comforting in its familiarity. The only other sounds are the dripping of water from the soaked rigging and the quiet, stunned gasps of the disciples. The aftermath of a significant spiritual encounter or a survived crisis is often marked by a sacred quiet, a space for processing the immensity of what has occurred. God often speaks most clearly in these hushed moments. Jesus stands or sits among them, the very embodiment of tranquility. His clothes are likely as soaked as theirs, his hair damp, yet his demeanor is one of perfect, unruffled peace. He has just faced down the elemental fury of a Galilean tempest and commanded it into submission, with a few words. Now, he observes his disciples, his gaze perhaps still holding that gentle question, "Where is your faith?" or "Why are you so fearful?" His calmness in the face of their residual shock is a powerful lesson. The peace he offers is not just an absence of external turmoil, but an inner steadfastness rooted in his divine nature and his trust in the Father. The disciples are a study in contrasting emotions. The stark terror that had gripped them is slowly receding, but its residue, a kind of trembling shock, remains. Their faces, pale in the dim, pre-dawn light that is beginning to seep into the eastern sky, are etched with exhaustion and disbelief. Yet, overlaying this is a new, powerful emotion, awe. It is an awe tinged with fear, not the cowering fear of the storm, but the reverential fear one feels in the presence of the overtly holy, the undeniably divine. They look at Jesus, then at each other, their eyes wide, their mouths perhaps slightly agape, struggling to comprehend the magnitude of what they have just witnessed. The fear of the Lord, in this biblical sense, is not about being scared of God, but about recognizing his overwhelming majesty, his holiness, his power, leading to profound reverence and worship. What manner of man is this, that even the wind and the sea obey him? The whispered question circulates among them, a current of astonished wonder. They are trying to fit this event into their understanding of the world, into their understanding of Jesus. He was their teacher, their rabbi, the one they hoped was the Messiah. They had seen him perform miracles of healing, restoring sight to the blind, cleansing lepers, making the lame walk. They had even seen him cast out demons. Those were mighty acts, signs of God's power at work. But this was different. This was a command over the very forces of creation, the untamed, chaotic sea and the wild, invisible wind. Each of Jesus' miracles served as a sign, pointing towards his true identity and the nature of the kingdom he was inaugurating. The stilling of the storm was a particularly potent sign of his divine sovereignty. For a Jewish mind, the power to control the sea was uniquely an attribute of Yahweh, the God of Israel. The Old Testament is replete with imagery of God's dominion over the waters. The creation account itself speaks of God separating the waters and setting their boundaries. The psalmist sings of God who rules the raging of the sea, who stills its waves, Psalm 89:9. Who made the storm be still, Psalm 107:29. By his actions, Jesus has laid claim to an authority that belongs to God alone. The implication is staggering, almost too vast for them to grasp in this moment. Yet the seed of that understanding has been planted. The disciples are on a journey of revelation, gradually coming to understand the full scope of Jesus' identity. This event is a massive leap forward in that understanding, challenging their preconceived notions of who the Messiah would be and what he would do. The boat is still heavy with water, a tangible reminder of their near demise. Though the immediate danger has passed, the practical task of bailing out the remaining water and getting the boat back in order needs to be done. They might begin to move, slowly, almost mechanically at first, their minds still reeling. Perhaps Peter or Andrew or one of the other fishermen takes charge, his voice subdued. Giving quiet instructions, they scoop and bail, their movements less frantic now, more deliberate. The physical activity might even be a welcome grounding, a way to process the overwhelming spiritual and emotional experience. After profound spiritual highs or deep crises, returning to ordinary, tangible tasks can help us integrate the experience into our lives. Work can be a form of prayer, a way of grounding overwhelming emotions. As they work, they continue to steal glances at Jesus. He is not aloof, but his presence among them now carries a new weight, a new dimension. How do you interact with someone who has just silenced a hurricane with a word? The old easy camaraderie might be tinged with a new reverence, a respectful distance. Encountering the manifest holiness of God inevitably changes our relationship with him. Familiarity deepens into awe. Casualness gives way to worship. The other little ships mentioned by Mark, if they survived the storm, would now be visible in the growing light. Imagine their occupants, equally astonished by the sudden cessation of the tempest. They too would be looking towards Jesus' boat, wondering, questioning. Perhaps they would draw closer, their crews eager to learn what had happened, or simply to be near the source of this incredible calm. The miracle was not just for the disciples in Jesus' boat, but potentially for a wider audience, a testimony spreading outwards. God's grace is never confined. Its ripples extend far beyond the initial point of impact, drawing others into its sphere of influence and wonder. The eastern sky is now beginning to blush with the first hints of dawn. Soft bands of pink and pale orange are appearing on the horizon, pushing back the deep indigo of the night. The stars are fading. A new day is coming, a day that will dawn upon a world where the impossible has just occurred. The beauty of the emerging sunrise, after the terror of the night, must seem particularly poignant, a symbol of hope reborn, of life snatched from the jaws of death. Every sunrise is a promise of God's faithfulness, a reminder that darkness does not last forever, that his mercies are new every morning. After a storm, the dawn seems especially luminous. Jesus might speak to them again, his voice calm and reassuring, perhaps explaining, perhaps comforting, or perhaps simply allowing the silence and their own reflections to do their work. He knows their hearts, their lingering fear, their dawning faith, their confusion. He is patient with their process of understanding. The greatest teachers know when to speak and when to allow silence for reflection. Jesus, the master teacher, guides his disciples not just with words, but with experiences that challenge and transform them. Consider the theological depth of this event. It's not just about power over nature. It's about the authority of Christ over all forces of chaos, whether natural or spiritual. The ancient world often saw a connection between the chaotic sea and demonic powers. By stilling the storm, Jesus demonstrates his sovereignty over all such forces that would seek to disrupt God's order and threaten his people. This miracle can be seen as an enacted parable of salvation, Jesus bringing peace and order. Where there was life-threatening chaos, a precursor to his ultimate victory over sin and death, the greatest storms that beset humanity, the disciples, as they continue to bail and row towards the eastern shore, are changed men. They have looked into the face of death and have seen it vanquished by a word from their master. Their understanding of power, of reality, of Jesus himself has been fundamentally altered. They will carry the memory of this night, the terror and the awe, for the rest of their lives. It will become a cornerstone of their faith, a story they will tell and retell, a testament to the true identity of Jesus. The defining moments of our faith journey, the times when God has intervened most powerfully, become indelible memories that shape our testimony and sustain us through future trials. The gentle rocking of the boat, now a soothing motion on a becalmed lake, is a stark contrast to the violent tossing of the storm. It's a physical reminder of the peace that Jesus has brought. Feel that gentle motion, that sense of safety and relief. Allow the peace of this moment to settle deep within you, just as it must have begun to settle, albeit mixed with awe, within the disciples. God's peace, the shalom that Jesus brings, is more than just the absence of conflict. It is a positive state of wholeness, well-being, and harmony, restored by his presence and power. Lesser-known details or delicate moments, perhaps one of the disciples, in the aftermath, reaches out a trembling hand to touch the hem of Jesus' garment, as if to reassure himself that he is real, that this is not a dream. Perhaps another sits, simply weeping quiet tears of relief and overwhelming emotion. These are human reactions to an encounter with the divine that is almost too much to bear. The human heart responds to overwhelming divine encounters with a mixture of emotions: relief, gratitude, tears, a desire for tangible connection, a profound sense of unworthiness coupled with overwhelming love. For centuries, theologians and believers have marveled at this passage, drawing myriad lessons from it. St. Augustine saw the boat as a symbol of the church, tossed by the storms of the world, with Christ seemingly asleep within, testing the faith of believers until they cry out to him. Others have focused on the psychological reality of fear and faith, the battle that rages within the human heart when faced with overwhelming circumstances. The richness of Scripture allows for multiple layers of meaning and application. This story speaks to the church corporately and to each believer individually, addressing our fears, our faith, and our understanding of Christ's power. The cultural history of seafaring on Galilee is also relevant. The lake, while a source of livelihood, was also respected for its treachery. Archaeologists have discovered ancient boats preserved in the mud of Galilee, similar to the one Jesus and his disciples would have used, giving us a tangible link to this story. These were sturdy but open fishing boats, vulnerable to being swamped by the kind of sudden, violent squalls described. Knowing the historical and geographical context enriches our understanding of the biblical narrative, making the events more vivid and relatable. The dangers were real, the boat ordinary, making the miracle all the more extraordinary. The journey to the other side, the land of the Gadarenes or Gerasenes, is now nearing its completion. As the light grows stronger, the eastern shore becomes more distinct, hills rolling down to the water's edge. This region was predominantly Gentile territory, a place different from the familiar Jewish towns on the western and northern shores. Jesus is deliberately leading them into new, perhaps uncomfortable, territory, both geographically and spiritually. Following Christ often involves being led out of our comfort zones, into new encounters and experiences that will stretch our faith and broaden our understanding of his mission to all people. What would the disciples be thinking about Jesus' question concerning their faith? Why are you so fearful? How is it that you have no faith? It's a challenging question. After all they had seen, did he expect them to simply sit calmly while the boat sank, trusting that he would eventually do something? Or was he pointing to a deeper kind of faith, a faith that knows such profound peace in his presence that even the threat of imminent death cannot ultimately shake it? Perhaps it is the latter, an invitation to a faith that rests not on circumstances, but on the unchanging character and power of God. True faith is not immunity from fear, but the ability to act courageously and trustfully despite fear, anchored in the knowledge of who God is. Jesus is constantly calling his disciples and us to this deeper level of trust. The rising sun now clears the eastern hills, its golden rays spreading across the water, painting the surface with light. The new day has fully dawned. It's a day of new beginnings, of transformed perspectives. The disciples have survived the night, but more than that, they have encountered their Lord in a way that has changed them forever. Each new day is an opportunity for fresh encounters with God, for deeper revelations of His love and power. The night experiences often prepare us for a brighter daylight understanding of who He is. As they approach the shore, the disciples might be unusually quiet, each lost in his own thoughts and reflections. The camaraderie of the journey's beginning, the easy talk and perhaps laughter, has been replaced by a more somber, thoughtful mood. They are processing an event that has shaken them to their core and simultaneously lifted them to new spiritual heights. Profound encounters with God often leave us in a state of quiet contemplation, as we try to absorb the significance of what has happened and allow it to reshape our inner world. The water in the boat is mostly bailed out now. The oars move with a steady, rhythmic beat, but the arms that pull them are weary, not just from the physical exertion of battling the storm, but from the emotional and spiritual intensity of the night. Yet, there is a new strength too, a strength born not of muscle, but of a deepened faith and a fresh understanding of their Master's power. Physical weariness can coexist with spiritual renewal. In fact, it is often when we are physically spent that we are most open to God's spiritual impartation. Imagine the feeling of the boat finally grating on the shingle of the eastern shore. The journey across the lake is complete. They have reached the other side. Stepping out of the boat onto solid ground must feel incredibly reassuring after the terror of being tossed on the raging water. But they are stepping into a new land, and soon, a new encounter will unfold, the healing of the Gerasene demoniac, which will further reveal Jesus' authority, this time over spiritual darkness. One revelation of God's power often prepares us for another. Each step of faith, each surmounted trial, equips us for the next part of the journey He has for us. The core biblical event, the stilling of the storm, is a demonstration of God's faithfulness. He was with them in the boat, even when He seemed asleep. He heard their cry, even when it was mixed with fear and doubt. He acted powerfully to save them, even when they felt all hope was lost. God's faithfulness is a bedrock truth of Scripture. He is with us in every storm. He hears our every prayer, and His power is sufficient for every need, even when our faith is small. This event emphasizes values such as faith, God's guidance, and God's faithfulness. It challenges the disciples and us to grow in faith, to trust in His guidance even when the path leads through stormy waters, and to rest in the assurance of His unwavering faithfulness. No matter how dire the circumstances may seem, the trials of life are often the soil in which the strongest faith grows. When we are tested, we discover the true depth of God's faithfulness and the surprising resilience He builds within us. The mystery of Christ's nature, fully human, fully divine, is powerfully illustrated here. His human need for sleep, His divine power over creation. The disciples are confronted with this mystery in a way that is undeniable and awe-inspiring. Contemplating the mystery of Jesus, His two natures in one person, is a lifelong source of wonder and worship for the believer. It is a truth too deep to fully comprehend, but profoundly transformative to embrace by faith. The moral reflection for us is clear. In the storms of life, when we feel overwhelmed, when fear threatens to capsize our hope, we too can cry out to Jesus. He is in our boat. He may seem silent, He may seem asleep, but He is present, and He has the power to speak peace to our troubled hearts and circumstances. Our part is to call upon Him, to trust Him, even with our imperfect, fearful faith. The invitation remains, call upon me in the day of trouble. I will deliver you, and you shall glorify me. Psalm 50-15. His power is activated by our cry of faith. However faltering, the disciples, having now landed, will look back across the becalmed lake. That stretch of water, which so recently was a scene of terror, now lies peaceful under the morning sun. It will forever be a reminder to them of their fear, of Jesus' power, and of the astonishing peace that followed His command. The landscapes of our past trials, once viewed with dread, can become monuments to God's deliverance and faithfulness. when seen through the lens of His redeeming power, they become places of remembrance and gratitude. The gentle rocking of the boat has ceased, replaced by the solidity of the land beneath their feet. But the inner rocking, the unsettling yet ultimately grounding realization of Jesus' true identity, continues within their hearts and minds. They have been shaken, but they are also being established on a far deeper foundation of faith. God sometimes shakes our earthly foundations so that we might build more firmly on the eternal rock of Christ Himself. The things that can be shaken are removed, so that the things that cannot be shaken may remain. Hebrews 12:27. The sun climbs higher, the day begins in earnest, and these men, witnesses to an extraordinary display of divine authority, carry within them a story that will echo through eternity, a story of a storm stilled and of a Savior revealed in breathtaking power and majesty. The boat now rests on the quiet shore of the eastern side of Lake Galilee, likely in the region known as the Decapolis, perhaps near Gadara or Gerasa. You step out onto the land, feeling the firm, solid earth beneath your feet, a profound contrast to the wild, unstable motion of the boat during the storm. The sun is climbing higher in the sky, its warmth beginning to dispel the lingering chill from the night's ordeal. The air is fresh, washed clean by the rain, carrying the scent of damp earth and lakeside vegetation. Before you stretches a landscape different from the more familiar western shores, perhaps a bit wilder, less cultivated in places, reflecting its predominantly Gentile population. Arrival on a new shore after a perilous journey often brings a mixture of relief, gratitude, and a sense of stepping into the unknown, ready for what God has next. The disciples gather near Jesus, their movements still somewhat subdued, their faces reflecting a mixture of exhaustion from their ordeal and the profound awe that has settled upon them. The memory of the storm's fury is still vivid: the roaring wind, the crashing waves, the boat filling with water, their desperate fear. But even more vivid now is the memory of Jesus rising, His voice cutting through the chaos with two simple words: "Peace, be still," and the instantaneous, miraculous calm that followed. Traumatic experiences, when redeemed by God's intervention, can become powerful catalysts for spiritual growth, etching deep into our souls the reality of His power and presence. They are looking at Jesus with new eyes. The fear they felt during the storm was the fear of annihilation. The fear they feel now, or rather, the awe, is the reverential trepidation that comes from standing in the presence of unveiled holiness and omnipotence. Their whispered question, "What manner of man is this, that even the wind and the sea obey Him?" still hangs in the air, a testament to the paradigm shift in their understanding. They thought they were following a great teacher, a prophet, perhaps even the promised Messiah who would restore Israel. Now, they are confronted with the staggering possibility that He is far more, that He wields the authority. Why have God Himself over creation? The journey of discipleship is a continual unfolding of revelation. Just when we think we have Jesus figured out, He does something that shatters our categories and invites us into a deeper, more awesome understanding of who He is. Jesus allows them this time of quiet reflection and processing. He does not rush them. He understands the magnitude of what they have experienced and the profound impact it is having on their hearts and minds. His presence is calm, reassuring, yet undeniably powerful. He is the eye of the storm, and now the source of the profound peace that followed. A wise spiritual guide knows the importance of silence and space for God's truth to take root. Jesus often led His disciples through experience first, then allowed time for the lessons to permeate their understanding. Think about the journey they have just completed. It wasn't just a physical crossing of the lake. It was a spiritual passage. They moved from a state of relative peace and routine into a terrifying storm that brought them to the brink of despair, and then, through a divine intervention, into a new state of awe-filled wonder and dawning faith. This pattern from peace, through trial, to a deeper revelation and stronger faith is often mirrored in our own spiritual lives. God uses the storms of life not to destroy us, but to reveal Himself more fully to us, to strip away our self-reliance, and to build in us a faith that is anchored in His omnipotence and love. The disciples might begin to talk amongst themselves in hushed tones, recounting specific moments of terror from the storm, then contrasting them with the unbelievable moment of the calming. Did you see how that wave almost, and then he just stood up and said? Their shared experience creates a powerful bond between them, a collective memory that will forever unite them. Shared trials and shared experiences of God's deliverance forge deep bonds. Within the community of faith, these stories become our collective testimony, strengthening and encouraging one another, the other little ships that were with them, as Mark's gospel uniquely records, would also have made it to shore, their crews undoubtedly sharing a similar sense of astonishment and relief. They too would have witnessed the sudden, inexplicable calming of the tempest. Their testimony would corroborate the disciples' account, spreading the news of this extraordinary event throughout the region. God often provides multiple witnesses to his mighty acts, so that the truth may be firmly established and his glory more widely known. Consider the impact of Jesus' question, "Why are you so fearful? How is it that you have no faith, or where is your faith?" This question would linger in their minds, a gentle but persistent challenge. It wasn't an accusation meant to shame them, but an invitation to self-examination and growth. They had faith, certainly enough to call out to him in their desperation. But Jesus was calling them to a deeper, more robust faith, a faith that could remain steadfast even in the face of overwhelming chaos, a faith rooted not in the absence of storms, but in the presence of the storm stiller. The goal of our faith journey is not to avoid storms, but to learn to trust Jesus so profoundly that we can experience his peace, even in the midst of them. He is more interested in developing our faith than in always providing a storm-free existence. The theological significance of this event is immense. It speaks directly to the divinity of Christ. Only God can command the wind and the waves. In the Old Testament, as we've noted, this power is exclusively attributed to Yahweh. By demonstrating the same power, Jesus is making a profound statement about his own identity, his oneness with the Father. For centuries, the Church has affirmed, based on such scriptural accounts, the full divinity of Jesus Christ, co-equal with the Father and the Holy Spirit. This miracle is a cornerstone for Christology, the theological study of the person and work of Jesus Christ. It affirms his lordship over all creation. The story also offers profound comfort and hope. If Jesus can calm a literal storm on the Sea of Galilee, he can also calm the metaphorical storms in our lives, the storms of fear, anxiety, grief, doubt, illness, or relational conflict. His power is not limited to the physical realm. His command, "Peace, be still," can speak directly to the turmoil within our hearts and minds, bringing an inner calm that surpasses all understanding. The peace of Christ is a profound spiritual reality that can anchor us, even when the circumstances of our lives are chaotic. We access this peace through prayer, through trust, through surrendering our storms to him. Imagine the disciples now, beginning to look around at this new land. Their immediate focus shifts from survival to their surroundings. They are in a predominantly Gentile area. Soon, Jesus will encounter the Gerasene demoniac, another powerful display of his authority, this time over the forces of spiritual darkness. The stilling of the storm can be seen as a prelude, a demonstration of his power that prepares both the disciples and those they are about to encounter for the even greater works he will do. God's acts are often progressive, each one building on the last, revealing more of his character and power, and preparing us for deeper encounters with him. Lesser-known cultural insights. The fear of the sea was very real in the ancient world. It was seen as a mysterious, often hostile realm. Fishermen, like some of the disciples, while familiar with it, also respected its power. This makes their terror during the storm entirely understandable, and Jesus' calm command over it all the more astonishing. They were not simply afraid of getting wet. They were afraid of a power that could utterly destroy them. Understanding the cultural mindset of the time helps us appreciate the full impact of Jesus' miracles. He was confronting not just physical elements, but deep-seated fears and worldviews. The obedience of nature to Christ's command is a beautiful picture of creation. Responding to its creator, the wind and waves recognized his voice, the voice that spoke them into existence. It's a reminder that all of creation is ultimately subject to him. As the Apostle Paul would later write, "For by him all things were created, in heaven and on earth. Visible and invisible, all things were created through him and for him. And he is before all things, and in him all things hold together. Colossians 1:16-17. The created order, though groaning under the effects of the fall, still retains a responsiveness to its Lord. This miracle is a glimpse of the restored harmony that will one day characterize the new heavens and new earth. The reverence that now fills the disciples is a key takeaway. Their relationship with Jesus has deepened. He is no longer just their rabbi. He is their Lord, the master of creation. This new understanding will shape their future ministry, their courage in the face of persecution, and their willingness to lay down their lives for him. The awe they feel is not a paralyzing fear, but a motivating reverence that fuels devotion and obedience. A true encounter with the living God always leads to a deeper reverence, a desire to honor him with our lives, and a boldness to follow him wherever he leads. As you stand on this shore, feel the warmth of the morning sun on your skin, the gentle breeze that now whispers peacefully, so different from the storm's howl. Reflect on the journey. The disciples set out in the evening calm, were plunged into midnight terror, and have now arrived in the morning light, transformed. Their boat, a simple fishing vessel, became the stage for a divine drama, a revelation of God's glory. Our ordinary lives, our everyday boats, can also become settings for extraordinary encounters with God. He meets us in the midst of our routines, our challenges, our fears, and reveals his power and his peace. The story emphasizes key values such as God's guidance, even through terrifying experiences, his faithfulness in the midst of human fear and faltering faith, the importance of hope, even when all seems lost, and ultimately, the redemptive love of God, who does not abandon his children in the storm, but comes to their rescue, revealing himself in saving power. These divine virtues are not abstract concepts, but lived realities, demonstrated powerfully in this narrative and available to us today as we navigate our own lives. The mystery of Jesus' sleeping through the storm continues to provoke thought. Was it a test of their faith, a demonstration of his perfect peace and trust in the Father, a symbol of God's seeming silence in times of trouble, which ultimately gives way to his powerful intervention when we cry out? For centuries, believers have pondered these questions, finding fresh meaning and application. Perhaps it's all of these. His sleep highlights his humanity and trust. His waking command reveals his divinity and authority. The scriptures often hold layers of meaning, inviting us into a lifetime of contemplation and discovery. The mysteries of God are not meant to be fully solved by our intellect, but to be embraced by faith, drawing us deeper into relationship with him. The calm after the storm is not just a weather phenomenon, it's a spiritual principle. After periods of intense trial and testing, if we have clung to God, there comes a profound peace, a clarity, a renewed sense of his presence and purpose. These moments of post-storm calm are precious times for reflection, gratitude, and absorbing the lessons learned. Cherish the seasons of calm that follow life's storms. They are gifts from God, opportunities to heal, to grow stronger in faith, and to prepare for whatever lies ahead, with a deeper assurance of his unfailing love and power. The disciples will eventually leave this eastern shore and cross the lake again. They will face other challenges, other storms, both literal and metaphorical, but they will carry this memory with them, the undeniable proof of Jesus' power over the most chaotic forces. This event will become a foundational story in their understanding of who Jesus is and what it means to follow him. Our God stories, the accounts of his faithfulness and intervention in our lives, become vital anchors for our faith, sustaining us through future uncertainties and empowering our witness to others. The final line of the introduction to this bedtime story invited you to open our hearts to the wisdom, comfort, and wonders that unfold in God's Word. This story of Jesus stilling the waves is rich in all three: the wisdom to trust him even when we are afraid, the comfort of knowing he is with us in our boat, capable of calming any storm, and the wonder of his divine power and loving care. As this story concludes, may these truths settle deep within your spirit, bringing peace to your mind and rest to your soul. Let the gentle lapping of the waves on the Galilean shore, now peaceful under the morning sun, be a soothing sound that lulls you. Imagine the disciples, weary but awestruck, perhaps finding a place to rest after their harrowing night and momentous arrival. Jesus is with them, His quiet strength a reassuring presence. The terror of the storm has given way to the profound peace of God. Allow this divine peace to fill your own heart now. Let go of any anxieties, any fears, any lingering storms from your day. Rest in the knowledge that the one who stilled the waves of Galilee is with you, watching over you, and capable of bringing his perfect peace to your life. The sun is now fully risen over the Sea of Galilee. The waters sparkle, reflecting the clear blue sky. A new day has begun, a day filled with the potential for God's grace and further revelation. The disciples, though they do not yet understand everything, have taken a giant leap in their journey of faith. They have seen the Lord of creation in action, and they will never be the same. And as you drift off to sleep, may you to be carried forward in your own journey of faith, secure in the love of the one who commands the winds and the waves, and who whispers to your soul, "Peace, be still." He is the Lord of peace, the master of every circumstance, and his presence is your ultimate security, tonight and always. The gentle rocking has ceased, the shore is reached, and a deep, abiding calm settles over all.